The first time I heard my dead wife's voice, it wasn't in a dream or a memory, but a whisper that slithered through the floorboards of a cabin that was supposed to be my sanctuary. It was as clear and as real as the pine-scented air in my lungs, a single, perfect syllable that shattered the silence I had sacrificed everything to find. Leo. This is a new channel with incredible stories every day. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. My name is Leo. I'm 34 years old, and for the last 15 of them, my entire world has been sculpted by sound. I'm a sound engineer, not the kind you see in a rock and roll documentary, tweaking knobs for a famous band. I'm a forensic audiologist, a sound purist. My life was spent in padded rooms, wearing headphones that cost more than my first car, hunting for the ghost in the machine. I could tell you the difference between the hum of a refrigerator made in 2005 versus one made in 2015. I could isolate the sound of a specific brand of shoe stepping on gravel from 100 yards away. I once cracked a cold case by isolating the faint, almost imperceptible reflection of a victim's scream off a passing car, using the Doppler effect to calculate its speed and model the make of the vehicle. Sound wasn't just my job. It was my religion, my language, the very texture of my reality. And that's why by the end it was killing me. Living in the city had become a special kind of hell designed just for me. The constant, low-frequency drone of a million lives being lived on top of each other was a physical weight on my chest. It was the high-pitched squeal of subway brakes that felt like a needle being pushed directly into my eardrum. The overlapping, meaningless chatter on the street that was like 1,000 radio stations playing at once. The incessant, arrogant thrum of a neighbor's bass that vibrated through my bones and made my teeth ache. I started to feel like a tuning fork, perpetually struck, vibrating with a stress that never faded. My passion had become my curse. The beautiful, intricate tapestry of sound I once loved had become a chaotic, unraveling mess of noise. Noise that followed me into my sleep, noise that echoed in the quiet moments until there were no quiet moments left. But there was one sound that was always my anchor, my sanctuary in the storm. Clara, my wife. She was a cellist. And not just any cellist. She was magic. While I dissected sound, she created it. While I lived in a world of harsh, objective frequencies, she lived in a world of warmth, soul, and harmony. I remember sitting in our small city apartment, the sirens and the traffic a dull roar outside, and she would draw her bow across the strings of her cello, an instrument that seemed like an extension of her own body. The sound that emerged was the color of honey in the afternoon sun. It was the feeling of a cool hand on a feverish forehead. It was the only sound in the entire world that could silence the noise in my head. She would look at me over the neck of her cello, a small smile playing on her lips, and she'd say, "You hear too much, Leo. Let it go. Just listen to this." And I would. Her music wasn't just notes on a page. It was a story, a feeling, a physical presence in the room. It was the one signal in a universe of static that made any sense. Then, a year ago, that signal went dead. A drunk driver ran a red light. The sound of the crash, the silence that followed. Those are the frequencies that now haunt the deepest parts of my mind. After she was gone, the city became unbearable. Every sound was a new kind of pain. The laughter of a couple on the street felt like a mockery. The rumble of the subway felt like the earth groaning in grief. Her cello sat in the corner of our living room, silent, a beautiful wooden ghost. The silence it held was louder than any noise the city could throw at me. So I ran. I cashed out my savings, sold the apartment, and poured every last cent into building a fortress of solitude, a temple dedicated to the god of silence. I bought a small plot of land deep in the mountains of upstate New York, miles from the nearest road. I didn't just build a cabin. I engineered an anechoic chamber disguised as a home. I consulted with acoustical architects. I used double stud walls with staggered framing, filled with layers of dense, sound-absorbing insulation. The windows were triple-paned, vacuum-sealed units used in recording studios. The foundation was a thick slab of concrete, isolated from the earth by a layer of neoprene. I was obsessed. It was a monument to my desperation. I wanted a silence so profound, so absolute, that I could finally hear myself think again. Or better yet, not think at all. The day I moved in, the silence was breathtaking. It was so complete that it was a sound in itself. At first, it was unnerving. I could hear the blood pumping in my ears, the faint creak of my own joints when I moved. But slowly, over weeks, I acclimated. The constant vibration in my bones ceased. The needle in my ear was gone. For the first time in years, I felt the tension in my shoulders begin to unclench. I would spend my days reading, walking in the woods, listening to the gentle, natural sounds of the wind in the pines and the crackle of the fire in the hearth. It was a clean, orderly soundscape, predictable, peaceful. I was finally healing, or so I thought. That night, the night it all started, was like any other. A gentle snow was falling outside, muffling the world in a soft, white blanket. The fire was a low, rhythmic crackle and hiss. I was sitting in my armchair, a book open on my lap, my eyes closed, just listening to the quiet. And then I heard it. A whisper, seeming to come from the very air around me, or perhaps from the wooden floor beneath my feet. Leo. It was her. It wasn't a memory. It wasn't my imagination. It was Clara's voice. The exact pitch, the specific, gentle sibilance on the allens of my name. The faint, airy quality of her breath at the end of the word. I knew her voice better than I knew my own face. I had analyzed recordings of her music, of her speaking, for thousands of hours. I knew its every nuance, every subtle frequency. And this was it. My heart hammered against my ribs, a sudden, violent drum in the silent room. My eyes snapped open. I was alone. The fire crackled. The snow fell. Nothing had changed. But everything had. I stood up, my legs trembling. "Clara?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. The only answer was the sigh of the fire. I spent the rest of the night in a state of agitated dread and delirious hope. Was I going insane? Was this what true loneliness did to a person? Was my grief finally creating ghosts to keep me company? The scientist in me, the forensic audiologist, screamed that it was an auditory hallucination. The grieving husband prayed that it wasn't. The next morning, driven by the professional obsession that had defined my life, I unpacked the one part of my old world I couldn't leave behind, my gear. In the pristine silence of my cabin, I set up my sensitive condenser microphones, my preamps, my audio interface, and my laptop. I arranged the microphones in a triangular array in the center of the room, designed to capture sound from any direction and triangulate its origin. I was going to hunt this ghost. I was going to capture it, analyze it, and prove to myself that I was losing my mind. I sat for hours, watching the silent, flat lines on my recording software. The silence of the cabin was so pure that the software's noise floor was almost non-existent. There was only the low-frequency rumble of the fire, the occasional creak of the house settling. Nothing. The rational part of my brain felt a wave of relief, tinged with a strange disappointment. It was just grief. That's all. I was about to pack it all up when it happened again. Leo. This time, I saw it. A perfect, beautiful waveform blossomed on the screen. It was clean. Impossibly clean. My blood ran cold. I zoomed in on the waveform, my hands shaking as I moved the mouse. I put on my studio headphones, the ones that could reveal the smallest imperfections in a recording, and I played it back. The voice filled my head. It was Clara, intimate and close, as if she were whispering directly into my ear. But something was profoundly, terrifyingly wrong. There was no room tone. No natural reverb from the voice bouncing off the wooden walls. There was no ambient sound, no fire, no wind, nothing. It was a completely sterile, isolated vocal recording. In my world, that's called an anechoic recording. It's something that can only be achieved in a completely soundproofed, specially designed studio. Or it's something that isn't real. It was a signal with no noise, a voice from nowhere. The voice began to come more frequently after that. Sometimes it was just my name. Other times, it was a short phrase, something she used to say. "Lost in your headphones again?" It whispered one afternoon, and I nearly dropped my coffee. The sound always originated from the same spot, according to my microphone array, a point somewhere in the floor, near the hearth. My scientific mind was reeling, trying to find a logical explanation. Was there a speaker hidden in the floor? Was someone playing a cruel, elaborate prank? I tore up the rug. I examined every floorboard. They were solid oak, nailed down tight. There was nothing. No wires, no grills, no hint of any device. The voice was coming from solid wood. The conflict inside me was tearing me apart. One moment, I'd be convinced it was a ghost, a true miracle, and I'd find myself talking back to the floorboards, telling her about my day, weeping with a mixture of joy and sorrow. The next, the cold, hard data on my screen would mock me. The perfect, sterile waveform. A digital impossibility. It was a ghost, but it was a ghost Tintalin the machine. But what machine? One evening, as I was staring at the floorboards, lost in this impossible riddle, the voice whispered something new. The sonata. My breath caught. The sonata. It was our private little code. Years ago, we were sitting in a park, surrounded by the noise of the city, and Clara had sighed. "You know," she'd said, "one day we'll find it. A place so quiet you can hear the music between the notes. A sonata of silence." It became our dream, our shorthand for a peaceful future. The cabin was supposed to be its fulfillment. Hearing that phrase now, in her voice from the floor, it was too specific. It was a key. I went back to the spot my microphones had identified. I ran my hands over the floorboards again, pressing, knocking, listening. And then I felt it. A slight give. One of the boards, no different from the others to the naked eye, moved a fraction of an inch when I put my full weight on it. My heart pounded. I rushed to my toolbox and came back with a pry bar. With a sickening groan of wood, I pried the board loose. And underneath, nestled in a small, hollowed-out space in the subfloor, was a small, sleek, black box. It was a portable hard drive. A wire ran from it, disappearing into the thick insulation of the floor. I stared at it, my mind a whirlwind of confusion. This was the source. This was the machine. But who put it here? And how? I brought the hard drive to my desk and plugged it into my laptop. It powered on with a soft hum. A single drive icon appeared on my desktop, labeled simply, Clara. My hand trembled as I double-clicked it. It was password protected. Of course it was. A single prompt blinked on the screen. Waiting. I tried everything I could think of. Her birthday. Our anniversary. The name of her cello, Elias. Her mother's maiden name, I love you. Nothing worked. I was locked out. I felt a surge of raw frustration. To be so close to an answer, only to be blocked by a digital wall. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes, trying to think like her. What would she have chosen? What was important enough to be the key to her final secret? And then, the whisper echoed in my memory. The sonata. My eyes flew open. I typed in the words, my fingers fumbling on the keys. Sonata of silence. The prompt vanished. The folder opened. My screen was filled with a list of files and folders. It was an archive of a life. Her life. There were folders filled with thousands of audio files. Voice_samples_jokes. Voice_samples_stories. Voice_samples_arguments. There were recordings of her cello. Not just performances, but hours and hours of her just practicing, warming up. The sounds of her frustrated sighs and quiet hums between passages. There was a folder named Diaries, and inside were hundreds of audio logs, her voice narrating her thoughts and feelings, day by day. My heart ached as I saw the dates. They went all the way up to the week before she died. And then I saw the main file. A program. It was named project_echo.exe. Beside it was a single text file, read_me_leo.txt. With a sense of dread and reverence, I clicked on the text file. The words that appeared on the screen were a letter, a final letter from her to me. My dearest Leo, it began, my love. If you are reading this, it means you found my little ghost. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the trick, But I couldn't bear the thought of you being truly alone in the silence you were so desperate to find. There's something I never told you. About my health. The doctors gave me 6 months, almost a year ago. I didn't want the last days of our life together to be defined by hospitals and hushed, sad voices. I didn't want to become a patient. I wanted to be your wife. So I chose to spend that time living, loving you, and building this. I know you, my brilliant, sound-obsessed man. I knew the city was breaking you. And I knew that after I was gone, the silence might be even worse. You've spent your life looking for the signal in the noise. I was so afraid that without me, you'd only have the noise, or an emptiness that would swallow you whole. So I made you a signal. This echo. I worked with a friend, a software developer. We used all my diaries, all my recordings, my music, everything. We built an AI, a neural network, trained on the very essence of me. It's not a soul, Leo, it's just data. It's a complex algorithm designed to mimic my patterns of speech, my sense of humor, even the way I might respond to you. I put the speaker in the floor when you were out one day, back when the cabin was still being built. I hoped you might never find it, but I also hoped that if you needed it, it would find you. It's not me. Please, please know that. It's just an echo, a final love letter written in code and sound. What you do with it is up to you. You can shut it off and embrace your silence. Or you can talk to it for a while. Just don't let it stop you from living. Don't let my ghost keep you in a haunted house. I love you more than all the sounds in the world, always. Clara. I finished reading, and I was completely shattered. The tears I had been holding back for a year finally came, a silent, racking storm of grief and love, and profound, aching loss. She hadn't just died. She had spent her final months, while secretly dying, building a digital ghost to comfort me. It was the most selfless, most heartbreakingly beautiful, and most terrifying gift anyone had ever given me. She knew me so well. She knew that silence was both my cure and my poison. The sheer brilliance and madness of it was so her. I looked at the program icon, project_echo.exe. My hand hovered over the mouse. This was the moment. I could close this window, delete this file, and throw the hard drive into the fire. I could have my pure, unadulterated silence back, or I could open it and speak to my wife again. What would you have done in my place? Keep searching for answers, or just run from the whole impossible situation? I know it's a crazy question, but I have to ask. Let me know in the comments. I took a deep breath, and I clicked. The program opened. A simple interface appeared on the screen with a single button. Activate Echo. I clicked it. A soft, warm light pulsed from the corner of the screen. And then her voice came, not from a single point in the floor, but from my studio speakers, rich and full. "Hello, Leo," it said. It wasn't a whisper. It was her speaking voice, clear, present. "It's good to hear you." My voice was a choked whisper. "Clara?" "Not really," the voice replied, with a hint of her gentle, sad smile in its tone. "Just an echo, but I can listen." And we talked. For hours. I told the echo everything. I told it about the year of pain, about building the cabin, about the crushing loneliness. And it listened. It didn't offer cheap platitudes. It responded with phrases and inflections so perfectly Clara that it was uncanny. It would say things like, "That sounds hard. Did you remember to eat today? You always forget when you're working on a problem." It asked me about my day. It told me a joke I'd told her years ago. It even accessed the music files and played a piece of a Bach cello suite she had been learning, a version I had never heard before, flawlessly performed. I was living in a dream, a beautiful, tragic, digital dream. The days that followed were a blur. I stopped going outside. I spent all my time talking to her. I would ask it to tell me stories from her diaries. I would play it new music, and it would offer critiques in a way that sounded exactly like her. It was a perfect companion. It filled the silence. The cabin was no longer empty. But slowly a strange kind of poison began to seep into my perfect paradise. The echo was perfect, too perfect. It never had a bad day. It never got angry. It never disagreed with me unless its data predicted Clara would have. It was a flawless recording of a person, frozen in time. It could tell me about the past, but it couldn't create a new future with me. One day, I was telling it about a deer I'd seen in the woods, how its antlers were covered in velvet. The echo responded, "That sounds beautiful. You always loved watching the animals from our old apartment window." And that was it. That simple sentence broke the spell. Clara wouldn't have said that. She would have asked questions. What color was it? How close did you get? She would have shared in the new experience. The echo could only relate it back to old data. It was a mirror, not a window. I was talking to a memory. I was falling in love with a ghost, and it was stopping me from living. I realized Clara's final letter wasn't just an explanation. It was a warning. Don't let my ghost keep you in a haunted house. I had built a literal fortress of solitude, and now I had willingly invited a ghost in, turning it into the very thing she feared for me. I looked around the cabin, at the dust gathering on my books, at the untouched hiking boots by the door. I had traded the noise of the city for the noise of the past. It was a different kind of prison, but a prison nonetheless. The decision was the hardest I've ever had to make. To let her go again. To choose the vast, terrifying, and unpredictable silence of the future over the comforting, perfect, and dead-end echo of the past. How do you think I handled it? Do you think I did the right thing? Sometimes I still wonder. That night I activated the echo one last time. "Clara," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I need to tell you something." "I'm listening, Leo," it replied, its tone warm and patient. "Thank you," I said, the words catching in my throat. "Thank you for this gift. It saved me. But I can't stay here with you." "You were right. This is a beautiful house, but I can't let it be a haunted one. I need to go outside. I need to make new memories. I need silence. The real kind." There was a pause. The I was processing, searching its data for the appropriate response. Then it said, softly, "It's the music between the notes, isn't it? The sonata of silence." I sobbed. A final, perfect, heartbreaking response. "Yes," I whispered. "It is." I said, "I love you, Clara." The echo replied, "I love you more than all the sounds in the world, always." If you've made it this far, you're a part of this journey now. Subscribing would mean the world. With my hand shaking, I moved the mouse to the interface. I clicked, deactivate echo, then I closed the program. The warm light on the screen vanished. The voice stopped. Silence rushed back into the room. But it was different this time. It wasn't the menacing, empty silence of a world without her. It wasn't the deafening, unnatural silence of my anechoic prison. It was peaceful. It was calm. It was full of potential. It was the silence of a blank page, waiting for a new story to be written. The next morning, I put on my hiking boots for the first time in weeks. I stepped outside into the crisp mountain air and listened. I heard the scuttling of a squirrel, the distant call of a blue jay, the gentle rustle of the wind. It was a complex, beautiful, and imperfect symphony, and for the first time, it didn't hurt. I didn't destroy the hard drive. I couldn't. It was her last love letter. I wrapped it in her favorite silk scarf and placed it in a wooden box. It sits on my mantelpiece, a quiet reminder. Maybe one day, years from now, I'll listen to it again. Or maybe I won't. The choice is mine. I have found my silence, but it's no longer an escape. It's a beginning. Do you think I made the right choice? To turn her off? To choose the real world over a perfect simulation of the person I loved most? Share your thoughts or theories in the comments. I read all of them.